think since Friday, I made it clear that my intention was to play, and my intention was to play for the New York Jets.
Okay.
Are you ready for some football?
Welcome back to 32 Deep, your official channel for 32 Team Fantasy Football. March 15th, just a handful of days ago, Aaron Rodgers finally announced what his plans were. Looks like he's going to the Jets, except it's not really official yet. There's a lot of things that need to be worked out between the Packers and the Jets to make that happen, but it seems like an inevitability. You know, with Aaron Rodgers, you never know. March 15th kicked off the NFL year, and a lot of things went down. Pretty exciting news over the past few days. In similar fashion, the NFL Replica Association, which is a 32-team fantasy football league that I am a commissioner for, the league just had a trading frenzy. Yeah, the trade market just went bananas. It's post-combine, free agency opened up, a lot of that news. I think people are checking their teams a little bit more, and trades are starting to really happen. So I figured I'd break down some of these trades. Could be helpful for people thinking about how to value things in a 32-team dynasty league. On this episode, we're going to break down all the trades that happened and a little bit more. So let's get to it. First trade on the docket. Yours truly, the Seattle Seahawks and the Carolina Panthers. You can see there's Zay Jones going to the Seahawks. In return, the Panthers get their 2023 first round and second round back. Those were in the 30th overall slot, so pretty late round picks. In a 32-team league, what I usually do is normalize that to a 12-team league to kind of get an idea of what that pick is worth. In a 32-team league, the 30th pick is going to be about the middle of the third round. That's where I would value that. A second round pick that late is not worth that much at all, especially if you don't have the roster space. It's kind of like a really deep lottery ticket. I'm looking at my team. I'm trying to get more quality players because I really didn't have Eddie. Zay Jones had a really good season last season, and even with Calvin Ridley's arrival, you know, Zay Jones kind of played that slot guy. Seems like Trevor Lawrence has built quite a rapport with Zay Jones. I think he's worth giving up that third rounder. He's only 27, 28. Still got a couple of years in him, especially if that Jaguars offense really takes off. Pretty good trade on both sides. I think Carolina probably doesn't value Zay Jones as much. Taking a dart throw on someone in the third round, especially in a class this deep with running backs, could be worth it. Not a crazy trade by any means, but this really kicked off the trade frenzy. Okay, moving on to the next. The Panthers stayed busy. Looks like they received Paris Campbell. They got 2 picks from the Jaguars in 2024, the first and second rounder. Those are anticipated to be a little later. Looking at the Jaguars team, they look like championship contenders actually, especially after pulling this off, because in return, they got new NFL Panthers running back Miles Sanders, who's expected to lead that backfield. So that just bolsters kind of the starters on this Jaguars team. Paris Campbell is a bit of a unknown. He just signed with the New York Giants. It'll be interesting to see if he emerges out of that wide receiver room. Along with the last trade, this trade shows that the Panthers are really trying to stock up on draft capital and then keep their main core intact. Giving up Zay Jones and giving up Miles Sanders, not really part of their main starting lineup. So good moves overall by the Panthers. Really liking how they're setting up for the future, but also trying to compete next year. Jaguars making a power play move. They should be in the deep playoff run next year. Good move by both teams. So moving on, let's see, we've got this interesting trade that went down. I think what had happened was the Falcons were a little trigger happy, didn't know what they were giving up, but then realized they were giving up the first rounder back to the original team. which is a little bit more valuable than just say any other team's first rounder, because in a 32 team league, you know, that first round value varies very widely. So if you're in control of that pick and you can kind of see where that pick is going to end up, especially if you're not competing, that pick is going to be very valuable. You know, this could be a steal for the Falcons. It could be a complete overpay for the Falcons. That's the interesting thing, is that the Chargers do probably plan on getting in the top 12, which at this point, you want to evaluate it as a standard first rounder in a 12-team league. And so that for Darren Waller is a lot to pay for. That's why Greg Dortch was sent back. The teams had a gentleman's agreement to send back Greg Dortch. Falcons get some power in Darren Waller, but they're not really competing. If you look at their roster this year, very interesting trade. Darren Waller is getting a little older, where he's kind of someone you consider to be more of a contending team if you have him. Otherwise, you're trying to offload him. Chargers got their first round pick back, which is huge for them. So I think in this case, you know, the Chargers win the trade here. All right. Oh, wow. Okay, so these trades get crazier and crazier. We've got the Patriots and the Giants. Pretty big deal when this went down. This is one of those trades that went down and some people in the league complained. If we break this down, you can argue that Jalen Waddle and Amon-Ra St. Brown are a bit equal. So if you take those two out, what do we got left? We've got Dak Prescott and Kenny Pickett. Now, Dak Prescott has proven to be a very valuable quarterback, fantasy-wise at least. But Kenny Pickett is up and coming. So if you're trading that, you know, reliable fantasy contributor for the upside, I can see why these two quarterbacks equal out. So if we take those two out, then you have Pacheco and Christian McCaffrey. Plus, on the McCaffrey side, you've got a second rounder. You can kind of consider that not moving the needle too much. So here lies the difference. It's really the difference between Christian McCaffrey and Isaiah Pacheco. In this case, I think the McCaffrey side wins by a lot. Pacheco is pretty overhyped. He's a 7th rounder. But really, you know, I could be eating my words after next season. You know, Pacheco's on a high-powered offense. We're not sure if they're going to bring in anyone else, and he, you know, performed in the Super Bowl. There's not much competition existing on the Chiefs, so Pacheco could end up being a really good player. And in a year's time, he could end up being more valuable than McCaffrey. If McCaffrey blows his knees out, then, you know, wow, what a trade. So overall, in the end, I do still think the McCaffrey side wins, but it's not as lopsided as, you know, the mob was saying it was. All right, we got the Dolphins and the Bears. Mark Andrews is a key piece here. And if you look at the other side, you've got Mostert, who just re-signed with the Dolphins, coincidentally. You've got DeAndre Swift, who's gonna face some competition from David Montgomery. And you've got Alec Pierce, who's an upcoming wide receiver. On the Mark Andrews side, you also have Zonovan Knight, which we're not sure about him because Breece Hall is definitely going to take over that backfield. But this is kind of a weird one. You know, in this case, I'm looking at it. I think DeAndre Swift's value has just plummeted, in my opinion. They don't see him as a bell cow back. So I like the Mark Andrews side here. Mark Andrews is a beast, and it doesn't matter if he has Lamar Jackson or not. He balls out. This is a tight end premium league, so you know that makes Mark Andrews' value even higher. So yeah, overall, I think since Mark Andrews was the best player in this trade, that side ends up winning. You know, the pieces on the Bears side don't seem to add up to Mark Andrews' stud value. So yeah, I think the Dolphins win this trade. All right, we've got the Chargers and the Jaguars. Nothing pretty about this trade. Nothing sexy at all. It's a bunch of players, a bunch of meh out there. Kyle Trask has a chance to be a starter. Perhaps they're banking on that. Chargers are getting a lot of crap in return. Matt Collins, Drew Lock, Noah Fant, that's not really moving the needle much. Then again, the Jaguars side doesn't move the needle much at all, unless you think Kyle Trask is going to be the starter going forward. For that upside, it looks like the Chargers are getting a 23 first and a 25 first. The 23 first is pretty late. It's the 28th pick, so you can kind of extrapolate that out to a 12-team standard league. That is the 4th pick in the 3rd round. 2025 first rounder is pretty far away. It moves the needle a little bit, but definitely a long-term play there. Really, the Jaguars here are probably betting that Kyle Trask is the future, and if that's the case, then they do end up winning the trade. If Kyle Trask ends up being Kyle Trash, the Chargers win this trade by a whole lot. So only time will tell here. Ooh, we have a 3-way. I think this is the first 3-way in NRA history, so congrats to these teams. Congrats on having the first 3-way. You guys are a special bunch. Let's see, let's break this down. Commanders get Mike Evans and Cam Akers. Mike Evans, obviously you have to downgrade a little bit. He's getting a little older and lost his starting quarterback in Tom Brady. His value's gone down a little bit. Cam Akers, as we said in a previous video, is trash, but he does have upside in case he comes back pretty strong and meets the hype that he was receiving just a year ago. For that, they gave up quite a bit. Jacoby Myers, Shi Smith on the Panthers, he doesn't mean much. Tyler Algier, who had a really good season, 1,000 yards for a 5th round running back. That's pretty good. Probably going to get some playing time next year as well. And they give up their 24 first rounder and 24 second rounder. I think the Commanders, as the reigning champions, aren't expecting those picks to be worth much. This team likely contends again this year, so they're probably valuing the first rounder as a pretty late 3rd round pick, and the 2nd rounder obviously being very, very late pick. Oh, the Falcons, who had Darren Waller earlier, end up moving that asset to the Giants. They moved Cam Akers as well to get Tyler Algier and the 2 draft picks. They get rid of 1 draft pick for Darren Waller, but then they get another draft pick and then some. That's pretty good. They might consider Cam Akers and Tyler Algier as a similar value. So if you mark that off, then they actually got a good positive return on Darren Waller. Depends on where that 2024 first rounder ends up. It's looking like a pretty net even trade from the Falcons. So if you look at the Giants, man, it looks like they made out with a ton. They give up their 2024 first and Mike Evans. This team does look like they're going to compete, so that first rounder could be in the bottom half of the league. But then they got a haul. They got Darren Waller. They've got Jacoby Myers, who is probably going to be a key piece in the Las Vegas Raiders season next year, and they still got a 2024 first as well. That 24 first could be similar value to their own 2024 first. Very interesting to see how this will play out. I think overall, the Giants end up winning this trade. They got the most assets. The Commanders are betting on Mike Evans and Cam Akers, which I think are losing bets. Mike Evans, I think, is still going to be good, but I would not bet on Cam Akers. But, truly, the Commanders didn't give up a whole lot. I guess Algier is a nice piece, but he isn't like a stud like Mike Evans is. So the Falcons, probably a homer play to get Tyler Algier. I don't like what they did there, but they did get draft capital. They're getting more out of the trade from the previous trade, So good job on the Falcons on that part. But overall winner here, I see the Giants winning out here. As a bonus, I wanted to break down a trade from a little earlier, February 27th. We have the Colts and the Vikings. So the Vikings had the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 draft, and the Colts had the number 3 overall pick. Colts decide to move up to the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 draft, likely securing the quarterback that they want. The Vikings move down 1 spot and pick up 2 additional second rounders, which are pretty early second rounders, so you can consider them late 3rd rounder to early 4th rounder, standardized to a 12-team league. So pretty good move on both sides. I think if you have the quarterback that you want, pretty good to just go up and get the 2nd overall pick. And if you like more than one quarterback, probably as the Vikings do, they get a little bit more draft capital. So depending on the motivations here, Colts and Vikings both could conceivably win this trade. If I'm the Colts, I like CJ Stroud. Obviously, if Bijan falls to the 2nd pick, you get Bijan, but we'll see. Maybe they like the upside of Anthony Richardson. I wouldn't recommend that. I think it's pretty funny how hyped this guy is, but he was just not a real quarterback in college. Bryce Young, people are thinking he's the next Drew Brees. I like him too, but CJ Stroud just throws such a pretty ball. I'd be surprised if he's not the number 1 overall pick come this April. So those were the trades. Pretty interesting seeing how those break down. Hope this helps you evaluate certain trades in your 32-team league. Looking forward to more trades happening as we get closer to the NFL draft. I'll be continuing with my divisional breakdown in later episodes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.